because you called it bull when you said people can't, pull themselves up. Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't or
Today?
cannot? Yeah.
No,
You don't?
no, I don't.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. Happy Black History Month. You're gonna love this one. What's gonna be on your tombstone? Not trying to be macabre here, but it's a great question. Like, what is going to be written and carved into the short space that you can get onto a giant rock that sits above you when you plot? It probably won't be your immutable characteristics, meaning things you had no control over, where you were born, your gender, your skin color. These are probably going to be things that aren't going to be on your tombstone. You don't see tombstones like that. Instead, you see choices people make, like entrepreneur, father, loving husband, so on and so forth, beloved grandfather or grandmother. These are things that people put on tombstones. Philanthropist, you decided to give away a bunch of money. People don't spend a ton of time focusing, obsessing, or fetishizing the stuff you had no control over in life. And your race is one of those things. That is why it is so egregious and grating that some of the most powerful people in the country, with some of the most prominent stages on the country, continue to be utterly obsessed in such cringeworthy ways about their race. Listen to this.
I may be a white boy, but I'm not stupid. I know where the power is.
I know where the power is.
You think I'm joking? I learned a long time ago about the...
This is Joe Biden saying, I learned a long time ago that power is actually in the color of people's skins. I'm a white boy, but I'm not stupid, Joe Biden says. Talking about the color of his skin. That's all that matters about me, the color of my skin. Classic for Joe Biden. Perfect for Joe Biden. It's so pantomime and embarrassing. Kamala Harris uses fake accents when talking to black people. We've actually proven this time and time again. Listen to this.
I think he's going to get in.
So Kamala Harris was raised in Canada and then lived in California. Yet in front of certain audiences, Kamala Harris sounds just like Aunt Jemima. Got it? Are you sick of this crap? I am too. And so is one of the most legendary actors in world history, Morgan Freeman, who was born a black man, is a black man, and had this incredible response from a few years ago, before the full woke mind virus took over, about why he doesn't celebrate Black History Month, and why he doesn't want you to celebrate Black History Month, and what he actually would prefer. As one of the most dominant and powerful black voices in America, I just did it myself, as one of those powerful voices in America, regardless of skin color, right, obviously, Morgan Freeman says this to the aghast interviewer. Watch.
Black History Month you find
ridiculous.
why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
No.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
Oh, man. What an absolute, total, perfect answer. And I've never said that about a Hollywood star on anything. I've never said, like, what a thoughtful and precise and unbelievably powerful answer for all of society to hear. Never have I ever said that about any actor from Hollywood on anything. And we've covered hundreds of hours of actors and their dumbass comments. But man, Morgan Freeman. I know this is going to sound colloquial and stupidly nostalgic. I'm not a particularly old man. I'm not a particularly young man. I'm 37. And I remember growing up, born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. And I remember growing up with a Michael Jordan and Shaquille O'Neal posters on my wall. And while I guess there were like differences in our complexions and obviously in our height and our skill levels, I wanted to be those people. I never made it about my skin color. It was just, I was proud of their decisions they made in life to be excellent at what they did, playing sports ball. And I was really blown away at how good they were at those things. And I thought that was something to aspire to as a young man. I was like a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I, like tens of millions of other young men, had a Michael Jordan poster up on my wall. Never thought once about like his skin color. And Michael Jordan never once told me about his skin color. Isn't that amazing? You go watch some of these documentaries about Michael Jordan. Like, he actively went out of his way to keep politics out of it. He didn't want you to know his political affiliation. He's a Democrat. He didn't want you to know that. He didn't want to campaign for Democrats. He went out of his way to not do those things. And so, like, how can we get back to that America? Where, like, entertainers entertain. Where Hollywood actors just act. Where sports ball players play sports ball. And where politics doesn't have to poison everything. Because when we allow the lowest intellectual quotient people to run everything, they will reduce us down to a number. And they will reduce you down to your skin color. They will reduce you down to where you came from or where you were born. And they'll judge you by the things you have no control over. And it's a horrible system. It's far better to just like Michael Jordan because he's great at basketball, not because of his skin color. That's like a far better society. A meritocracy is what that's called. And we should totally get back to that. This is a much better country to live in than I'm going to judge you for something you had no control over. I would rather judge you for what's going to be on your tombstone. And what I mean by that is the actions you took in life, who you are as a person. What decisions did you make? Did you make the decision to be the best ball player ever? Well, then you deserve respect for that. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody who has made sort of this point quite profoundly and quite shockingly, to shockingly astute effect, is Vivek Ramaswamy, who went on The Breakfast Club, which is a very popular urban talk show, and spoke to Charlemagne the God, who's totally woke, about race relations in the country and about how this country was founded and the actual timber of the men who founded this country and what they thought about these kind of issues. And it shocked the host, and it shocked me when I saw it. I said, the balls on this guy. I think you will too. Watch.
Now, don't be the person who was the slaveholder back then. Be John Adams. That's what we should call ourselves to be. The person who bucks the trend of their time to say, I'm going to speak on my own conviction and do what's different than being the product of my own time. Because anybody can parrot what the slogan is of their day. But the hard thing to do is to say the pack is running this way and I'm going this way instead anyway because it's grounded on my conviction.
People like John
That's
Adams,
what we need.
People like John Adams are the reason you can point at it and say it was wrong, though, because John Adams knew it was wrong.
Well, a lot of people are going to be doing things today that are different than the way that each of us is going to be living our lives and say the same thing in 250 years from now. Somebody else
people
is going to be
like
having the
Abe
same
Lincoln
conversation.
Thought it was wrong, clearly.
Abe Lincoln wasn't around then, man. That was still
later on.
That was still later on. And we'll just take the story down. We'll just pass this lineage down. We don't talk American history enough. Actually, it irritates me. A lot of conservatives talk about the importance of knowing history without actually just talking about history. Let's talk this through. So John Adams, you know who his son is? John Quincy Adams. He's the first non-founding father who became a president. Here's a funny fact about him. He was the first, so outside of the founding fathers, he was the first one who was elected president. He actually wasn't a great president. He was elected out after one term. People didn't love him. And so he tried to find everything else he could do. He went and tried to write some books, and he went and tried to start some nonprofits, and none of that spoke to him. He's the only president, John Adams' son, who went back to Congress after being a president. So he's elected to multiple terms of Congress. And you know what he went back to Congress with? Was one thing he regretted not doing as a president, was abolishing slavery. This is long before Abraham Lincoln comes along, okay? So he wanted to abolish slavery. His father was an abolitionist. He didn't accomplish much during his tenure as president. He was a good Secretary of State, but he was not a very good president. Think about the humility to say, I'm not even going to go to the Senate. I'm going to go become a congressman and get reelected multiple times with the mission of abolishing slavery. Now, here's what happens. There was a rule that Congress passes. It's called the gag rule, which stopped people from using the word slavery. Like they literally couldn't use the word slavery because they didn't want people to utter the word because it made them uncomfortable. So this guy's already been the U.S. president. Okay, so he has nothing to lose. He's just a congressman now. He says, I'm going to say the word. I'm going to say it, slavery. Slavery, slavery, slavery. There. Congress has set the rule that you can't say the word slavery. Well, I'm going to say it. So they censure him and have, just like they have today for George Santos or whatever, they'll have the equivalent of kicking him out of Congress. So they have his trial in Congress. And he uses his own personal trial, because this guy's got nothing to lose. They use his own personal trial for saying the word slavery when you're not allowed to say the word slavery to make the case for abolition from the stand of his own trial to being kicked out of Congress. At the end of that, they get rid of the gag rule. So you're allowed to say slavery, which opens up the debates that you're then allowed to have. So a year later, about a year or so later, he's given a speech on the Congress floor. I mean, it's amazing. This guy with this humility. He's given a speech on the Congress floor. He has a stroke in the middle of his speech. He dies right there. He doesn't die quite yet. They take him up to the upstairs room, keep him alive for another couple days. And eventually he dies up in that anteroom outside in the same Congress where he then devoted that later stage of his career. And they took volunteers for who's going to be the person who carries out his funeral rites and carries him out. And the guy who raises his hand and does it was a first-term congressman nobody had heard of, hadn't said a word, by the name of Abraham Lincoln. And so these are the stories of our history, man. We don't tell these stories anymore.
And
we celebrate. We put back our founding fathers, and we talk about how these people are slave owners, and we're going to dismiss the ideals they set into motion, without recognizing that, like us today, these are imperfect human beings that still strived and to be the best that they possibly could have, just as we do today. And so it bothers me deeply for us to just lazily reject that, as opposed to saying we acknowledge those imperfections, but we're founded on the pursuit of a more perfect union.
Absolutely, but the reason
the pursuit of liberty, equality, and justice for all.
The reason you can't just dismiss it and say, okay,
I'm not dismissing it, though. Do I sound like I'm dismissing it, Charlemagne?
Yes, but the reason
I disagree with you, man. And I think
reason
that
you can't say
if you're going to
Thomas
put me in the
Jefferson-
category of the conversation we had and saying that I just dismissed it out of hand, I think that's unfair. I just think that's unfair. I don't think I dismiss it, but I acknowledge the totality of what a human being is, which is an imperfect and flawed human being who we can still celebrate.
I'm fine with that. But you can't.
That's what we have to be.
But you can't tell people just to ignore the fact that Thomas Jefferson.
I'm
was a
not
slave
telling people to ignore it, though. Okay. And this is what I think I'm in this to unite the country. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're going to take this seriously, every one of us has to acknowledge the full nuances of our history in every direction. To say that we're not going to listen to Thomas Jefferson or that our founding was illegitimate because they were deeply imperfect and flawed is every bit as bad as somebody who's going to say that I'm going to entirely dismiss the fact that they were slave owners. I think that both of those are mistakes that could lead to the failure of our country as we know it. I think our country will cease to exist if either side of our debate is, on one hand, willing to say, oh, slavery was some made-up myth, and actually, I don't know, it was in the interest of, people could say such things, it was the interest of black people to be slaves, whatever.
Ridiculous.
Okay. Well, I think that if we have a different side that says our founding fathers who wrote a Declaration of Independence founded on the pursuit of a more perfect union, right? The pursuit of liberty, equality, and justice for all. Not claiming we're perfect, but that we're a nation founded on freedom for all who aspire to have it, and that we're imperfect. But we eventually got there 250 years into as darn close as we've ever been. To reject that and say that we can't celebrate that founding because they made a mistake of being slave owners. I think that is every bit as bad for the future of our country versus acknowledging that we are still pursuing that more perfect union.
What I would say is what you talked about with Thomas Jefferson when he took the razor and he took out some of the philosophies that he agreed with. We should take some of those things that we agree with, but then everybody should come to the table because all was not at the table when those people wrote those documents.
We got that.
We have too much of a diverse country now.
We understand that.
Okay.
But my point is not rejecting that or taking a hammer to it. It's more of a different response. It's like, we got it. Like, total. Like, at a certain point, we've got to say, we've got it.
We don't, though.
No, but
we can, but we don't.
We got it, and now it's time for 360-degree mercy, clemency, forgiveness across the board, and that we're moving forward as one nation under God. And I think that moment is now, actually.
This is actually how we get a better America. God bless that show for actually having Vivek on, being willing to have that conversation. We get a better America by ignoring people's immutable qualities and focusing in and judging people by the decisions they make in life and the actions they make in life. That's how God's going to judge us. And we, our government and our society, should be a reflection of God. God's going to judge us for what we do. And not like where we were born, or what our skin color was. That's actually not progressive, it's regressive. I'm looking here, ladies and gentlemen, to create a better country. And this regression, of course, shall not stand. That's why you see it crumbling everywhere. Help us destroy it here on this channel. Like, share, and subscribe. It's your boy, Ben. See ya.